let's queer up politics. Failed French presidential candidate fined for homophobic comments. Far-right French pundit and failed presidential candidate Éric Zemmour was given a €4,000 fine, which is about 4,200 American Liberty bucks, for anti-LGBTQ plus comments that violated France's anti-hate speech law. On October 15, 2019, Zemmour appeared on a show on French TV to discuss whether medically assisted reproduction is progress. The show aired shortly after France passed a law allowing lesbian couples and single women to access medically assisted reproduction. During the show, Zemmour said that a small minority is controlling the government and having children without a father is catastrophe. In 2022, 6 French LGBTQ plus organizations filed a lawsuit against Zemmour. The judge has ruled in favor of the organizations. Zemmour was handed a €4,000 fine. The director of the show also fined €4,000. Zemmour and the director were also ordered to pay €3,000 to several LGBTQ plus organizations and €2,000 in attorney's fees. Zemmour's attorney said that he will be appealing the decision. Zemmour ran for president in 2022, and he frequently blamed the decline of the country on immigration, feminism, and the LGBTQ plus rights. Despite the massive media attention he got during the run-up to the election, he ended up getting only 7% of the vote in the first round of the presidential election. My only question of this case, I mean, it's a great outcome, but why wait 3 years to file the lawsuit? Why wait that long? I would have filed it the next day. I mean, but this might be a quirk in French law or whatever, but I think that, look, First Amendment is great, freedom of speech is great, but in Europe, speech is much more regulated, and they do use the laws to ban. I mean, for example, in Germany, you can't even show anything that remotely related to Nazism. In France, too, in most parts of Europe, you basically go underground for that stuff. And in France, and across Europe, too, there are several places where you cannot outright say that stuff. Like, Lips of TikTok would have been banned in France. She'll be arrested, thrown in jail. All right. But on the other hand, are we abusing freedom of speech? Should we regulate speech? I mean, should we regulate speech like that so that we can force hate groups to cough up money?
Right, but don't forget, I mean, France is going through elections next year. So this is timely. So these are the kind of provocateur. These are people that are just provoking, you know.
Yeah, think about how rhetoric got Donald Trump to where he was.
Exactly right.
Just stir people who, people who are easily swayed by a headline or a soundbite, and you give them something where you feel like, oh, he's got our back, he's standing up against something.
Right, it's no different than Ron DeSantis. I mean, it's no difference. It's provocateur, people that are provoking discussions to bring this out and to bring the basis. He may have gotten 7% in the last election, but France has, unlike many of these Western European countries that we think are so liberal and so advanced and so culturally accepting, there is a lot of anti-immigration movement in Europe. There is a lot of anti-LGBT movement in Europe, and France is no exception. So Marine Le Pen last time, you know, she was a great challenger to Macron in the last 2 times. And she's a dynasty. Her father was even more extreme than she was. So this is bringing out all these crazies, and he's one of them. And when they need to form government, guess what? They create coalitions. So his 7% may seem like small, but you know, when you adds up to Marine Le Pen and those movements, they are a challenger to the centrists or to the left. So we cannot be oblivious to this.
$4,000 just seems like a drop in the bucket for someone like him.
Well,
it's kind of mind-blowing to me that it wasn't more of a statement with a higher number. You know what I mean?
But generally, right now, Dino is completely right. The specter of a far-right movement is casting a shadow across Europe. AfD in Germany,
in
Marine Le
Poland,
Pen.
in Hungary.
In Hungary, Orbán is literally like trampling civil rights just for sport at this point.
And Italy.
And
That's right, Italy. That's
and
right.
Italy literally elected a fascist. So
Right.
and Italy is literally trying to ban LGBTQ plus families. They're trying to undo.
Even in countries that you will never think, Sweden, the Netherlands, that right extreme movement, and let's face it, a lot of this is because of the movement of refugees and immigrants into Western Europe. So it kind of like bring all these, out. But, they find common cause with all these movements and anti-LGBT. So even countries like the Netherlands, Belgium, Sweden that are so progressive and so liberal, you find all these crazies out there trying to create, laws against these communities.
So real quick, I want to touch on something that Bobby said. I'm curious for y'all taking it, bringing it back home to the United States. When we talk about freedom of speech, do you think that we draw the line in the right spot when we're talking about how we regulate speech? Should we let it, be completely without rein, or do we think that we should be fining folks for hate speech, and what does that look like?
I think the question is whether we can use speech, or rather, we can litigate against certain person based on their speech. For example, a lot of old school KKK groups and white nationalist groups were sued out of existence because Southern Poverty Law Center represents the victims of assault and basically say that they caused this, and sued them out of existence. A lot of these victims received property and land and essentially just dismantled the entire thing. Some of them even got trademarks of the hate groups and sat on it so that no one can use it ever again. But the question is, for example, Lips of TikTok. She basically is this close to inciting violence, but she never crossed the line technically.
And that's the critical
part. On the other hand, if she is like, oh, look at this disgusting drag queen who is going to performing here, here, and here, and then essentially just nudge, wink, wink at the extremists to tell them to show up there and terrorize them, can we as victims sue her out of her house and home? That's the question. I don't think the United States government would never institute a hate speech law per se. It has to be. So civil litigation is probably our best move forward against extremist groups.